Has it come to this, where the President of the United States fakes crocodile tears because of gun control? Or the NRA puts out a talking head video saying that the left, whoever they are godless in their prohibition and their attacks against the Second Amendment. What's wrong with you people? Neither of you are telling the truth about your positions. I'm going to do that on this video. I will concede one piece of logic. As a matter of fact, we all need to concede to this part of logic, because 1 and 1 is 2, and you can't beat math and probability. The more of a thing there exists, the more events around that thing will exist. What that means is, the more guns you have anywhere, the more events related to guns will take place. Some negative, some positive. Well, if you're on the receiving end, none of it is positive. But my point is, the only way to prevent events with guns is to have no guns. Keep that in mind as I go through my explanation here. There are those who really, really want to eliminate, and if they could, all guns from this country, except in the hands of soldiers and law enforcement. Those are the unspoken ways of stopping gun violence. And we have about 30,000-ish people die as a result of being shot somehow in this country every year, which is about the same as being killed by automobiles. Neither the gun control folks or the gun supporting folks are being truthful with themselves or the other side about this issue. At best, we talk past each other. At worst, we just lie to hell to each other about our intent and our real beliefs. So for the gun control people, the gun safety people, the common sense gun control people, just stop lying to everybody and stop lying to yourself. Certainly stop lying to folks like me. I know, and you have said, both publicly and privately, that the only way you see going forward to reduce deaths by firearms to what you would consider an acceptable level is to not have any firearms in the hands of civilians. That is your position, and that is what you wish if you could get it done. So stop lying to me and others and yourself about what your real intent is. I've been trained to spin the heck out of stuff and come up with messaging that says what I would like it to say and to convince others. And you are trying to do the same thing. So stop lying to us about what your real goal is. A real tell in this lie that you foster is the continued reference to the Australian situation. You talk about the actions that were put in place by that government after they had in 1995 or something a mass shooting of 35 or so people. What happened was, the result was, it affected 650,000-ish firearms. 650,000. That's not even a decimal point for what's in this country. Second, the end result And the effect on the Australian people was full confiscation. Confiscation is what in fact happened in Australia. So for you to bring that up to us and say that that's something that is valuable and you would like to see something-ish like that happen in this country, just say what you mean. You want to get rid of all the guns in this country, no matter who has them, if they're private citizens. That's what you want. Say what you want. I mean, let's face it. Talking about the results that Australia got with respect to its firearm situation is like heaping praise on the Chinese for controlling their population without talking about the disaster of their one-child policy. Look, it's already a crime to commit murder in this country. It doesn't matter how you do it. A homicide is a homicide. If you kill somebody with malice and intent, that's murder. You cannot murder someone in this country. It doesn't matter if you use a gun. It doesn't matter if you use a hammer, a knife, you run over with a car. It doesn't matter. It is against the law to commit murder. So with respect to the one thing that you want to focus on is the firearm or the gun, whether it's a long gun or a pistol. And for long guns, you want to talk about cosmetic features that have nothing to do with the lethality of the gun. The size of magazines, the amount of rounds that you could have. Those things are small, insignificant things that have not had any impact, none, on the people who have legally got those firearms, right? Legally. And pass background checks, which is the next thing. The background check system is in place, thanks to the NRA, by the way. I'm not a member of the NRA, but thanks to them. That background check was not put in place by Democrats. It was not supported or fostered by Democrats. The problem with the background check system is that not all people who are supposed to be screened by the background check are in the system. That's a fault of the states, for whatever reason, not providing the national database with the information. I'm not talking about someone who is suspect, and to hell with the no-fly list. That's bullshit. I don't even want to talk about that. That's the stupidest damn idea anybody had ever come up with, Mr. Obama. Now, I will say that those who have the responsibility to control the population have pause when they know that that population has the same firepower that they do. They think twice. And in places where it is now legal to shoot a SWAT guy coming into the wrong address, not your problem. You're repelling borders. You didn't know who those guys were, right? And you shot them all in the face because they made a mistake and you had the same firepower that they did. Hey, sucks to be them. That's a fear, right? What that means is that the government, those people who are paid to control the citizens, cannot arbitrarily just start bullying them. Now that's a video for another time. But there is that dynamic when one starts talking about the kind of firepower that's in the hands of a private citizen and the firepower that's in the hands of those who might abuse that citizen. So why isn't there a direct conversation about confiscation, about de-arming the citizens of this country? Why don't we just say that's what folks want and then have a discussion about that? And that brings me to a difficult but real clash of the nature of the values that each group has. Those who really, really want stricter gun control or total elimination of guns believe, and they really believe this, that the harm produced by private gun possession outweighs the benefits of private gun possession. Okay, I can understand somebody thinking that. And then there's the children. Jeez. It comes down to this, right? Those who support the right to keep and bear arms as given to us or enumerated to us in the Bill of Rights, right? We have a right to that. Just like we have a right to free speech and all the other Bill of Rights, the first 10. So we get to say, yes, I want to exercise that right. I have the right to exercise that right. And as responsible gun owners and carriers, I totally understand that there is a consequence, a societal consequence, that I am personally willing to take and we as a country need to take. On the other side, gun control advocates say that's too high a price to pay. What that means is to have one person die by a firearm of any type is too much to pay. Well, careful what you wish for, because what's going to be the next thing that a person dies from that you're going to say one is too much? That is an unsustainable logic train. Which brings us to the unspoken truth for the gun rights Second Amendment supporting people like me. We need to stop lying, and we need to say what we mean. And what we say and mean should be this: America, because of the right we are given, needs to be willing to tolerate tens of thousands of people killed by guns every year as part of the consequence of the inalienable right by the Second Amendment. It's going to happen, and it is the cost of the inalienable right of the Second Amendment. I say, get over it. Believing that the right to bear arms takes precedence over the negative effects of ensuring that right is something we just need to say, because it is true. Now, it's not unusual, because this attitude, when taken with the Second Amendment, follows from a similar, widely accepted understanding of the freedom granted by the First Amendment. In this case, I'm talking about freedom of speech. Just as we must tolerate the airing of all sorts of unpopular opinions as a consequence of unfettered free speech, gun crime and deaths by the gun is the inevitable cost of the Second Amendment, and both the cost of living in a free society. Now, let me switch to Europe. Don't even think about comparing America to the EU. America is the only country in the world that has a true freedom of speech right for the people. Right? In this country, some yahoo can stand up and wave the Confederate flag, stars and bars, and say, the Holocaust didn't happen. And all we say is, what a dickhead, right? You do that in any of the Nordic countries, Germany, and your sorry ass goes to prison. Right? So which free speech would you rather have? Ours or theirs? I'll take ours anytime. We need to all accept that in living in a free society, there will be unwanted side effects, which can only be eliminated by eliminating the rights that make us free. In other words, there's some shit we just need to tolerate and deal with. That doesn't mean crime, because there are already a billion laws against crime, especially violent crime. But those are after the fact, right? Because we can't punish somebody for thinking something they might do. Look, we who support the Second Amendment and the rights associated with that need to be honest about saying that there is a societal price associated with that amendment and with that right. But the other guys need to understand that your fundamental opposition has a consequence as well. But that is a fundamental opposition to a constitutional amendment. And as much as it theoretically, confiscation, might reduce the amount of deaths and gun crime altogether, doing such is impossible in this country. As for the Second Amendment, all of the historical writings associated with having that amendment placed in the Constitution in the number 2 spot argue that they are there in the Constitution not for the sake of hunting because it wasn't necessary, or for self-protection because it wasn't necessary, and to protect businesses from criminals because it wasn't necessary to have a constitutional right for that. It was to allow the population to resist an overreaching government. Now, that's not tinfoil hat, black helicopters that come in kind of thinking. That is just what the facts suggest about why that amendment is in the Constitution. You have the benefit of keeping and bearing arms and then using it for self-protection inside and outside your home. But that's not the primary reason for it. And again, it certainly has nothing to do with hunting. So all you FUDs out there that go, wow, I've been hunting all my life, and we need to have common sense gun law. Fuck you. That's all I say about that. It is no exaggeration then, and this is why the anti-gun people try not to use that word confiscation. And that's because if agents came around to round up firearms, especially after the experience of surrounding Katrina, gun owners would be prepared to shoot back. I am one of them. I would not allow anybody to come and take my means of defense because whatever, unless I was a criminal. Criminal meaning I committed a crime, a violent crime, and I shouldn't have them in the first place. But it is not an exaggeration, is my point here, that for that to be suggested, for confiscation to come out of the mouth of any politician, really, a civil war could erupt in this country if anything remotely like that, or remotely what was done in Australia, were to be attempted. Just saying. So, thanks to 3 things, we're doomed to engage with each other in an endless and totally futile argument about guns in our society. The first, and get over this, people, it's enshrined legally in our founding document for this country. Either change the fucking Second Amendment or stop whining about it. Second, you folks that want to get rid of guns or severely control them so that they are invisible in society, know the only way to do that is by confiscation, and you need to say the words because that's what you mean, and then accept the consequences for saying those words. And for us and you who support the Second Amendment, you need to own up to the fact that there is in fact a consequence for having 350 million firearms in this country and 80 million armed people. 80 million in this country. Right? The consequence is there's gonna be shit happen with guns. Right? Has nothing to do with crime, but crime is still gonna happen. We all need to recognize that those are the positions that we take. Now, if somehow the Second Amendment is taken away, and I don't think it can be, then fine. Otherwise, let's just stop arguing with each other about this thing. And maybe in a perfect world, the United States in its founding would never have had the Second Amendment. But such a country, one that's not forged an armed revolution against an arbitrary rule from afar and founded upon the principle of individual liberty, that wouldn't be the United States. You understand? We have the First, Second, and the Tenant Bill of Rights because it is the nature of our country. Right? It's what gives us the individual freedoms and the more expansive freedoms that we have. But with freedom, the kind that we have, shit happens. Right? People are going to say stuff we don't like, whatever. Right? And you social justice warriors need to take a chill pill. But there is a consequence to being free. We tend to be vulnerable, but we shouldn't walk around paranoid. So I'll talk out about this as much as anyone, but I'm fully aware and understand that the position that I take means there will be deaths by firearm as long as there are firearms. So thanks for watching. And you non-FUDs out there, carry on.